My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the Raspy Dispatcher. Hope you guys are all doing well. I'm definitely one of those people who like to take overtime and complain about it. That is me. And then I also complain when there's no overtime because I want overtime for the comp time and the money in my pocket, but I want them to pay me and not have me show up. But it doesn't always work like that, though. I keep trying weekly with my supervisor. I haven't gotten them to approve that. So I'm on day 5 in a row of work. I go in tomorrow for another little morning overtime shift. So I hope you guys are all resting well and hopefully getting paid more money to do the job you normally do. Today's guest is a 13-year dispatcher and creator of Latinas of 911. I'm going to bring her on now, Josephine Rios.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Josephine. Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
I am good. You know me, just complaining about, overtime and working my assigned shifts.
I hear you. We all do
You
it.
can't hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
We got to love technology as dispatchers,
Yes, we do.
One thing I have successfully avoided is manual mode. I have successfully avoided manual mode thus far in my career.
Well, that's good, but I've actually done it.
Oh, no.
Not
No,
too
no, no.
terrible, but I have done it.
At my first agency, we had bells on our call taking side. So when we finish writing out the call, we'd ring the bell and someone would have to come around and grab our little card and run it to radio. And it's quite an experience that I am glad I never had to actually participate in.
Oh, bell. I think I would like a bell. For us, it's runner. Runner.
Yeah. See, it's the do. I don't know. It seems to work at that old concert. Oh, man. So tell us a little bit about how you got into public safety, your journey in dispatch.
My brother, actually, he was starting out as a police officer. So he was like, hey, you should try dispatching. Because I was working for a roadside service company, a private company before, and I was dispatching that. So he was like, oh, you'll probably like it. And I tried it out. I tried with Miami-Dade for a long time because I was born and raised in Miami.
Okay.
And it never happened, one reason or the other. And my brother was like, try another agency. There's others. I'm like, but I want Miami. I know it like the back of my hand. And then I tried another agency and I got hired through them. So, and I've been with them 13 years now.
Awesome. So what does your career look like? Do you do fire? Do you do police? Or what does that look like for you?
For us, we start out call taking. And then after we do call taking, after my first year, you get upgraded to a radio, and I ended up in law.
Okay.
I actually traded with one of my classmates because I was like, I was actually slated to do fire. And I was like, I don't want to do fire. I want law. I want where the action is.
Yeah.
And my classmate was like, yeah, I don't want law. You can have it.
Oh, so you guys just did a swap. You were like,
yeah. And then I ended up in law, and I've been here, and I still like it. I like dispatching. I like taking calls because even though we have our everyday stuff, every day is a new day. So it's fun.
And I always find it interesting, and it's one thing that I probably said on here multiple times, but I'm going to say again, when you're talking to folks who are thinking about getting into dispatching, it's one of those big questions is like, what do you want to deal with? Do you want to work at an agency that does fire, medical, and law enforcement? Does only fire, medical? Does only law enforcement? Because they are so different.
They are, and I actually think that because I do both and I work along fire dispatchers,
Mm.
I guess it's better in a way because you get to learn some stuff from them. They ask us information when they're not sure in regards to calls or stuff like
Mhm.
that when it's law based. So you kind of have a little bit of everything. You're
Mhm.
not just one thing.
Yeah. No, I would imagine it's definitely helpful because I ain't gonna lie, my fire dispatchers, they be frustrating me when I'm at work because I feel like every time I call them, they have like no info. They're like, "Yeah, I don't know. We need you guys." Like, okay, no name, no name, no. I'm like, "Oh, okay." All right, well, go do. We'll get there. And then, they call they call us or we call them for something to go and they're like, and they want all of it. They want like their social. They're like,
Yes,
I'm like, how
exactly.
come when we ask, well, you guys don't have anything, but you want everything from us? So,
Correct. Yes.
oh
Or is it safe for us to enter? And
yeah,
the
right,
subject is not on scene, and we're like, but the subject's not on scene.
yeah.
They still need PD to advise if it's safe to enter, and we're like,
I know.
really?
It's one of those I feel like it's one of those, like, how dispatch has a little, like, tiffs with, patrol. I feel like fire dispatch and or fire medical dispatch and law enforcement have that little, like, tiff as well, like, because
Yes.
man, but it's one of those things, it's like, I don't know your job, you don't know my job. It's just one of those things where it's just like, the not knowing can create a little bit of frustration, right?
Yes.
All right. What would you say it was like in the beginning for you? I mean, you wanted Miami and you got another county or city that you might not be as familiar with. How was that early process for you?
It was definitely hard because Miami, mainly Coral Gables, is where it has like street names, but mainly it's numerical. So with the other county that I ended up getting hired through, they had mainly name-based streets. So I
Mm,
had to learn their street equivalencies, what
mm,
names were what numerics, and I was like, oh my god, I'm never gonna learn this. So geography was terrible for me starting out,
mm.
but I ended up learning it either way as years of experience. And then now they mention a street. I'm like, oh, I know that street equivalency. I'm like, oh, I know Palm is like the 100th Avenue and Flamingo's 124.
Oh my gosh.
But things that you remember that you don't think you're going to remember. You're like, I'm not going to retain all of this because you have to learn
No.
10 codes, signals, numericals. I'm like, oh my God, it's
Or
so
how
much.
about those frequent flyers date of births and have you had that experience where the officer's like, "Oh, we're out with Jilly Bean," and you're like, "Oh yeah, 9/7 of 2024," like whatever the date of birth, and you just know it off the top of your head because you run them out so much. Have you experienced that?
No, for teletype, I'm going to say I have not done that. I think that's one thing I don't want to do in my career. I was like, I don't know how you guys do that because if you find a Jose Luis Rodriguez, you're gonna be like, really,
Man,
really?
let me tell you, I feel like, I mean, my name is Ashley Lynn Valenzuela, but when we get those two name Hispanic names, first name Jose, and you get those hits back, and you're just like, oh man, like you really got to look, you really got to see, you got to look at a second middle name, you got to really, because there's so many names that are so similar, and some people sometimes have the same date of birth and the same name, and learning to run people out because I didn't run them at my first agency, but learning to run them out at my now agency, I mean, it was and still is a learning experience every single day.
Yeah, I give props to whoever does teletype.
Mm,
That's a lot of work. I
mhm.
had one of the old school dispatchers. She was like, "Oh, I love it, Miss Leone." She was like, "It's like playing detective," and I'm like, okay,
It's
I
like
know
playing detective and you're sitting in a chair that's on fire because what if they have a warrant and you're not sure it's them
exactly.
and it's stressful.
Yeah, you have to double check, triple check. I don't know.
Run them different
But
ways. You gotta run them like especially when there's 2 last names, you have to run it with the 2 last names, then you have to run it with the first last name, and then you have to run it with the second last name, like separate, just in case it got lost in translation somewhere that they had 2 last names. So for us who are out there running folks out, you are heroes, because I had no knowledge that you existed at my old agency because we had a warrants division. So
Oh my God.
it's a tough job for sure.
Yes.
All right. Do you remember any of your early calls for service? Any of your first calls when you were just getting going?
I'm not gonna say I remember my first call, but I do have a call that's always stuck out with me where a mother killed her 2 kids
Oh man.
on the phone, and she was transferred from another agency. But I got the medical call as, "Oh, this lady's about to pass out," and I was like, "Oh, it's a pass out call." And
Man.
then as you ask "Okay, tell me exactly what happened," the
Mhm.
lady's like, "I don't know. I was called here by my relative that told me to check on her tenant that was blowing up her phone, and I just came and she's outside and she's about to pass out. Like I told the other operator, there's 2 kids that are not breathing inside, and I don't want to touch them." And I'm like,
Oh no, how do we drop that pass along? That's like the
and
first thing we should say. Forget the pass out, lady.
I was like, "What?"
Oh
So
my.
yes, that was not a good call. But and then trying to get CPR, right? You're thinking there's 2 kids now that you're telling me are unresponsive. Like, who do
Mhm.
you pick? But the
Yeah.
lady didn't even want to touch them, and I was like, "Okay, can you get a neighbor? Can you get somebody to help you?" And she was just
That
like, "No,
is
no, just get somebody here." Click.
oh my
And
gosh.
it was also interesting because at the time I had a rookie they had came upstairs to sit with us to see how the calls are. So he
Mhm.
got to experience that. So they
Yeah,
see like the things that we have to ask and how we try to get them to do CPR on patients, and if they're
mhm.
not willing to, so
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And I mean, and again, I haven't done medical. I've only done, police law enforcement side of things. And I guess I kind of never had the full thought about, I mean, essentially you have a suspect um, who's in the room who could potentially be the one calling on the phone, and you need to provide medical. Are you asking that suspect as if, let's say, they said, hey, I did this, they're not breathing. As a medical dispatcher, and I'm sure it differs from every department, but do you then try to gauge the suspect in performing CPR and assisting in that medical process, or is there a change that happens with that knowledge of the situation?
Well, if it's a suspect initially as a caller, we do scene safety first.
Okay.
So before we even try to do medical, we're doing scene safety.
Mm,
Okay, where it happened, where are you? Was
mm,
there a weapon involved?
mm,
Where is the weapon?
mhm.
And then where are the victims?
Yeah.
So, I mean, usually even you have by the time you get that far, there's units usually on scene
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
you even get to. But rescue's not gonna touch them unless they know the scene's secure.
Yeah. True. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I mean, I feel like with like violent calls where I'm getting someone who's like, so and so's been shot, something happened like that. I was always taught that I'm trying to get those, as you said, scene safety information, like who did it, where'd they go, where's the weapon, and then we're rolling over to fire once we get kind of that scene stuff, and then we're trying to bring fire on the line if we have someone who's willing to participate in those pre-arrival instructions. But I guess I just never thought about having the person who harmed the person on the phone still trying to get people there, and what that looks like for you folks on the medical side if you catch that call first
Yeah,
prior to law enforcement.
yeah, it's different. It was definitely a different kind of call that I had, and then at the time I had 2 patients. So it
Yeah.
was kind of like, okay, we tried this, we tried that. There was nothing. So it wasn't like a weapon involved. It was she
Mm,
had I learned at the time after that she had suffocated the children. So it wasn't
mm,
a weapon involved.
mhm, mhm. And I mean, that's gotta be, I feel like it might be one of those, like, you I think we all have to understand when we're doing this job that all you can do is the best you can do, right? Like, you try to get the person on the phone to assist, either of them in some way. And understandably, no fault of their own, they didn't want nothing to do with it. And it's kind of everyone's comfort level out in the world, right? Everyone's a little different. And I mean, I couldn't imagine being a stranger walking into a situation and you're like, you see two kids on the floor, mom's freaking out front, having whatever situation she's having. And then they're asking you to perform CPR, and it's just like it's probably a scene overload for them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She was just like, nope, I'm not going in there. I don't know what she did to them. I'm not. I don't want to
Man,
be involved.
yeah, it's tough. So tough. Well, let's transitioning to like a lighter note. um, you created Latinas of 911. Tell us a little bit about that, what your mission is, and how you got there.
I I actually did it to promote and empower Hispanic women in our line of work. I feel we're undervalued and unappreciated, uh, especially down here in South Florida, in my agency. So I kind of, after I saw 911 Wonder Woman and their platform, what they're doing, like I said, listening to you, and I was like, we don't have this here in South Florida. We don't have this stuff where we talk dispatchers or we try to improve people to go up if they want to laterally and stuff like that. So that's why I wanted to try that on my own. Right now, I started it's LLC, so it's small,
Mhm.
and hopefully with merchandise, I can get some money in so I can put it in towards training, or if anybody wants to move up and stuff like that and invest. I also learned for the ENP program, which I'm going to
Mhm.
try to do the test. I
Mhm.
haven't studied yet because I've been busy with training. But after
Mhm.
this training that I have to train now on the desk, I'm resigning from the program
Ooh,
for
for big
political reasons, but
time.
also because, like I said, I'm trying to do other things. So I'm trying to
Mm,
focus on this platform right now to help others in I guess, in a bigger spectrum versus what I'm doing right now.
yeah. I mean, I think it's so important. I mean, we just did a panel at Nina, and one of those panelists was Drew Clark. Dominique was on it as well, and Andrea, all from Carbine. And we were talking about authenticity in the workplace and w- how helpful it is to see people doing the job that reflects, who you are and the lifestyle you're living and the culture you've experienced. And I would imagine for folks who are trying to get into this line of work, being able to talk to someone from similar backgrounds, experiences, things that they might be concerned about that you can relate to is going to be super helpful for folks who are wanting to learn more about this line of work.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially like I said, when I hear people that say, "Oh, I listened to the Raspy Dispatcher and it helped me a lot um, with my application process and entering or their curiosity of what dispatching is like and listening to other people that you have and other guests and what they have to say.
Mhm.
And since you have different years experience that come in, they see through that and they're like, "Oh, that sounds cool," or "I want to do that." And they get suggestions also on how to handle calls.
Mhm. Mhm.
A lot of the ones that I want to actually focus mainly is on mental health
Mhm.
eventually also,
Mhm.
because I've dealt with that because I've been here this long as well. And it helps once you figure that out and identify also other coworkers that may be struggling and having the same issues that don't have someone to talk to.
Yeah. I mean, it goes such a long way to not feel alone.
It does, but it also comes with, do I trust this person enough to
Mm.
talk to them about it?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be gossiped about?
Mhm.
And I reached out to Shannon Polito.
Yes. 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 Shannon.
Hispanic me, I would tell her I would do Polito, Bonito. And she's been amazing also to reach out to and vent. And she's very passionate also about mental health and PTSD and training in regards to that for 911 dispatchers, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually, that's what I was telling her is there isn't a lot of information or research on mental health when it comes to 911 call takers. And once
Mm-hmm.
again, it's tailored more to law enforcement and fire rescue personnel versus dispatchers. I feel like they're just now starting to talk about it, especially because they're trying to make us also be classified
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
first responders.
Yeah, it really comes down to a how do we take care of ourselves and how do we create safe spaces to take care of each other? Because I do think that you're right. If I need to feel safe to be able to share, if I'm struggling with something, if I had a tough call, if it's sitting with me, and if my department or the environment in the center isn't reflective of being accepting of mental health and, dealing with PTSD and things of that nature, we're going to be more hesitant to share our struggles. And the reality is, once you share, there's someone else in the room that's felt something similar to, or possibly in the future. And we all need to be able to support each other without fear of retaliation, like you said, gossip, things of that nature.
Yes. And in my culture right now, it's still a lot of animosity. I don't feel like we root for each other.
Mm.
And I liked when Roxanne, is it Van Gundy? I think I said
Hmm.
it wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. I heard her in her presentation say, I'm recovering mean girl. And I was like, oh my God, that is hilarious. That's me.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, we gotta own our stuff sometimes, and
And
yeah.
it's true though, because I first started there. Obviously, I went from a call center environment to another one that was completely different, the
Mm,
atmosphere.
mm,
And it became, people were like just picking at me, or I felt like I was getting picked on every call that I was putting in just for because they didn't like me. They didn't like
mm.
who I was. And I was like, I'm quiet. I don't talk to anybody here. Like, what is the
Yeah,
problem?
I'm like, back
Why
up.
am I a target?
Start working on your lateral movement so they can't get you quick. Yeah.
I'm like, what is going on? So I just got better at reading policies. And my first trainer always told me they can only write you up here through black and white. So know your policies. And
I
now
believe
she says I'm a demon. She was like, "You're so annoying." Because I'm like,
Hey.
that's 10:30, which is for us is against policy and procedure. And they're like,
Mm.
"Shut up, Josie. You're like a
Hey,
walking SOP."
hey, man, I'm with it. I'm all for knowing the rules of the land. And if you are listening to me, if you worked with me, I'm always like, well, what's the policy? Because we can, as dispatchers, get real tight about the way we do things, even though it's style versus policy all the time. You want me to fix something? Cool. Show me the policy that says what I'm doing is wrong and I'll fix it. Now I'm down to take feedback. If you think I could do something better, but if you just don't like the way I do it because it feels icky to you, like, yeah, I'm gonna land on the policy. Know your policy. It will protect you. It will cover you. It is what keeps us safe, and it is totally. I'm all for. I'm with you. I'm with you, Josephine. Know that policy.
And that is how I train now my trainees, and I show them because it's the only way. I tell them, and then you might have a target. And if
Mhm.
you feel like you're a target, that's what's going to help you and back you up at the end of the day while you're
Exactly.
here, you know?
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
obviously I tell them if you need my help, if you need, I'm always here.
Yeah.
So it is hard, and that's why I tend to help when I need. Like I could see in certain individuals when they're having a bad day or they're overreacting to something.
Mhm.
Because that's how I used to be. Like I was a walking angry person
Mhm.
at work for a long
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
before I started going to someone and talking to someone and dealing with my depression, my anxiety. So
Mhm.
until I knew what was going on with me,
Mhm.
and now I see it in other people, and people are just like, oh, they're crazy. Oh, they're just moody. They're having a bad day. But
Mhm.
it comes back to that. It's their mental health,
Mhm.
and they're not doing great right now. So I'm like, hey, do you need something? You need
Mhm.
coffee? You need pizza? Are you hungry? You need a chocolate bar?
Let's get you a Snickers, you know? But
And it helps. Like just
Mhm.
asking them like, hey, how are you today? Like, you need
Yeah.
something, let me know. It helps. And then after they calm down, they're like, you know what, thank you for asking me, and this is
Mhm.
going on with me, and then they want to open up and share, and that's fine. But
Mhm.
we don't do that enough for each other.
Yeah, we
We're
don't.
just
Mhm.
because we expect us all to be strong all the time, and you have to be always, you know, emotionally strong, and you have to leave everything out the door. And in my culture, I grew up, it was you don't talk about it. You don't talk
Mhm.
about your feelings.
Yeah. Mhm.
So if you're having a bad day, okay, you're having a bad day. Move on.
Mhm. Mhm.
Get over it. That's
Yeah.
how I grew up.
And you know, and it's so funny how like our life experience, brings us into, what we do for a living as well, because we bring all that baggage with us, right? Like we already have a culture that historically has been that in law enforcement and any really first responder position where we're like, well, I'm good, I'm fine, even though it's tearing me apart. I'm not going to talk about it. And then if you bring into it that, like, that's how I grew up too. And then I go into this work environment that's reiterating how I was taught growing up. We're just going to get into this cycle of not taking care of ourselves. And that's like props to you for being like, I was feeling a type of way. I went and I got my therapist. I worked on my stuff and, I'm doing good. We should be advocating for and openly talking about like, yeah, I go to therapy once a week. I work on my stuff. Like it's not something we need to whisper about, it's something that we need to empower everyone to participate in because it's just a nice little tune up, once a week. You don't have to wait for the big thing to happen in order to
Yeah,
go get a little help.
correct.
Mhm.
And it's needed. And actually, I met with a retired sergeant from a
Mhm.
department. We were outside with friends, and he started talking about we care more about the dead than we do the living. We don't do
Mhm.
enough for the living. Like by the time you check on somebody that's already gone, it's too late.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, and it's true. And that's till now is when, they're doing peer supports in agencies
Mhm.
and trying to do more mental check-ins with
Mhm.
their employees and not see it as a weakness, even for law enforcement or fire personnel.
Yeah.
And
And
what peer support does is bring in your coworkers. It's not
mm,
necessarily a supervisor. It can be, but not necessarily someone that you have to talk to. It could just be a coworker. But again, it's sometimes a chosen position. It's not someone that's doing it because they want to do it.
mhm.
It's someone that's doing it. If you have someone that's doing it because they just want a better resume, then you're doing
Mhm.
it for the wrong reason.
Yeah. Mhm. And I mean, it's one of those things that, you and Latinos of 911 are going to start diving into and starting to work on resources as well to create those environments where people can feel heard. And like you said, like everybody knows especially in dispatch, has a BS meter, right? And like we can tell when it's phony, when it's fake, when it's a weird feeling in our stomach. You're just like, our dispatch alarm goes off. And you're right. If you're not coming with that intentionality to just be a genuine resource shoulder, for someone, they're going to feel that. And they're going to feel even worse after you walk away from them, after giving them some rehearsed type of response. So definitely be a peer who wants to support and not just to build a resume. I mean, it doesn't help you to take on someone's trauma if you're not really willing to try to help sort through it with them.
That's facts.
Mhm. Mhm. So, what advice actually, let's talk about, training and wellness and work culture in dispatch. I know you wanted to talk a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about the work culture and wellness. What does successful training, in your opinion, look like for you for a new dispatcher and for folks who are out there, a part of their CTO programs, trying to create different ways to help these aspiring dispatchers get through training? What does that look like for you?
Since I'm currently a communications training officer with my agency, I've kind of seen the flaws per se that we have. Even though we're APCO certified trainers, we don't go by the APCO certification. So through APCO, it shows you different learning styles for adult learners.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into how you as an instructor, you're the coach, you're the mentor, you're the cheerleader, you're the evaluator with your trainee. And it also states that you should be doing daily evaluations for your trainee on their day to day so they know how they're doing. Just like a teacher that's grading a paper, by the end of the day, you're grading that paper and you can kind of know, okay, she's missing this SOP, she's failing address verification, or he or she is failing in reassurance techniques. So you kind of see a pattern of where you need to work on with your training, their flaws are, and they know it. And they go home and they look at your notes and they're like, okay, I did this wrong, I did this wrong, but I did this right. I'm doing this good. It's not also you're just terrible, because if you're only evaluating on where they're doing bad, how is that motivating them to do better the next day and the next day? If every day you're writing something negative, or every week, because for us it's a weekly evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've done a lot of remedials because of the way I train. So the way I train is through APCO certification, and I do a weekly evaluation, and it helps them. Every feedback that I've gotten from new hires is, I like this form of training because I know what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And I like that you encourage me. I
Mm-hmm.
like that you tell me this is where I need to be and this is where I need to work on. You give me other materials, you do scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to want to teach the person. You can't just say, you have to do it how I did it, and this how I did it, and oh well, if you don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how is that person going to want to stay?
Yeah.
And you have to kind of build a rapport with your trainee also. If you don't have a rapport with your trainee and you just let them sit there listening to you, looking at you, but you don't engage them
Yeah.
during training, how
Mm-hmm.
are they going to feel comfortable going to you
Mm-hmm.
or learning from you?
Yeah.
If they're getting the cold shoulder from you for 7 to 8 weeks, how are they going to feel comfortable?
Yeah. I mean, we definitely need to create those, again, those safe environments for people to excel, especially during training, because you're being critiqued so much. Like, this is a job where when you're in training, it's rough, like you are every day constantly being judged, how you ask a question, how you input a call, why did you write it that way? I mean, it's designed to be nitpicky so you can gather your own style when you do get, released out of training. But we had daily DORs in both my training experiences, and it's helpful, I would say, the more frequent your reviews are, because you get overflow of so many calls, so many different things. And if you tell me a week later, well, I like last week you did that, and I'm like, what are you talking about? What call last week? I've had 400 calls since then. How am I going to remember unless you can really take me back, show me this instance where this happened, where you documented this, and where the pattern is? Because otherwise, like, I'm trying to get through every call and learn as much as I can, and it's information overload through our training. It's designed that way.
Yep. And unfortunately, that's part of the reason I'm getting out, is
Mm,
because I've had remedial after remedial, and then I voiced it to management. I said, well, in their evaluations, this person, I didn't see the trainer do this in their evaluation. I didn't see the evaluator do this in their evaluation. So
mhm.
where are they really? Like, how is that telling me what are they doing right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and it's a pattern of the same thing. So it's really not a trainee issue, then it becomes more of a trainer issue. So if you're
Yeah.
not correcting your trainers, if you're not having, why is this trainee not signing off weekly on their evaluations? Why is the duty officer, the CTO, the site manager, the assistant site manager, the training coordinator, why is everyone signing off on that except the trainee? And
Mm-hmm.
why is that okay? You have
Yeah.
all these eyes viewing the evaluation minus a person that needs to, which is the training.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a weird setup, right? And I think sometimes the I'm recovering mean girl aspect of it, right, is like our centers can be really toxic, especially in our CTOs and trainers, because there's a I don't know what it is, to be quite honest, but I've in my experience of talking to people, of witnessing it sometimes, is that like, are we trying to keep our overtime secure? Because we don't need to help people fail. The job is hard enough. If they cannot cut it, it'll show on their own without a cold shoulder or a lack of communication from the trainer to the trainee. It'll work itself out if they're not supposed to be here. As trainers, we should be trying to assist our trainees in every way possible. Like you said, doing scenarios, giving them worksheets, giving them, not taking the call over for them, letting them make safe mistakes. There are some situations in our line of work where we got to take over. There's some safety issues, but a typical, like, I don't know, theft call, they stole a Slurpee from 7-Eleven. We can let them fumble through it a little bit. It's not a life or death call, and that's just only going to help them gain that confidence for when the 211 comes in. They're going to be able to handle it because they handled the Slurpee thief. You got to help them gain that foundation. That's a primary responsibility as a CTO.
Yes. So that's why I want to do more like training stuff outside. And I feel also it's not always on the trainer's fault because, like I said, sometimes writing skills, we went so used to using abbreviations, 10 codes to do our headers that then you go to having to do your evaluations as a trainer in plain language
Mhm.
and learning how to spell correctly and your grammar. Is this punctuation correct?
Yeah,
Um, I
rough.
had help from my previous duty officer liaison and my wife, which is an English major. She loves to
Mm.
correct. She's like, "That's not one off sentence, honey."
My
And I'm like,
fiance works for Cal Berkeley. We in the same boat. We just we just trying to get through without spell check, you know what I mean?
"Thanks, honey. Yes, okay. Ramadan sentence. I'll fix it. Thank you." So she proofreads my work for me.
Same.
Uh, and
Like,
it
there
told me,
should be a
she's like,
comma there.
yeah, so now she's my teacher. When I tell her, honey, can you double check this for me? She's like, oh, you're getting better when you're writing. I had minimal stuff to correct. I'm like, oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
My asked me, what does she say? She's like, "Do you want feedback or do you want do you want, what are you looking for here?" And I'm like, just hit me hard, I'll take it off. Right? I'm in a criticized mood. Hit me.
And also, like I told Dom, it was, we don't have, even though the APCO course went into how to teach different kind of learners, adult learners, I said there's no really like teaching class of how to teach or how to assist CTOs in teaching different learners.
Mm,
So I told her I literally had to go to Pinterest and like I would try to figure out stuff in comprehension issues or if they were having reading issues,
mm,
if they had to read from their CAD and dispatching. I've had that
mhm.
issue and they're like this, you know.
Yeah.
So or they would read out of order stuff. So
Mhm.
a lot of the stuff that was in Pinterest was grade school stuff, but it worked. It would say like
Yeah.
have them
Back to the
practice.
basics. Mhm.
Right. It would say have them read out loud before they gave out the information to
Yeah.
themselves. Because
Mhm.
sometimes I would have a trainee on the radio side and they were reading the calls over the radio like they were just learning how to read, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
I remember having experience as a trainee, like, okay, this is what they wrote. I'm gonna read exactly what they wrote. And sometimes that's a lot of trust in my call taker. You know what I mean? That
Right,
means I'm trusting them blindly to make sense. And they might not make sense. Let's be
right.
honest.
So if you're thinking about it, you have a plethora of new call takers that are writing stuff, and some are not using proper abbreviations, or they're using text abbreviations.
Mm,
And then you have a new radio trainee, and they're trying to read through a new
yeah, for
trainee's
sure.
calls. It's kind of like, and I'm just like, oh my god. So it
No
takes a
way.
lot of patience,
Mhm,
a lot of dedication, a lot of want to do well in the job.
mhm.
So because it's already stressful, you have a lot of work, and like I said, if you become a trainer, some people become a trainer because they want to wear the red shirt, or they, like I said, they want to buff up their resume, and they want a lateral move. But to be a trainer, you have to want to do it. You have to
Yeah.
want to teach the person, because if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're not going to have success stories.
Mhm,
Bottom
mhm,
line, it's going to
mhm.
show in your work. If you
Yeah.
have 5 trainees that went through you and none of them passed, I mean,
Mhm.
there's a
Yeah,
problem.
like,
But
who's what are we doing?
that's what I'm saying. Management doesn't address that. So you're
Yeah.
overworking me with
Mm,
remedial trainees. And like I said, I see people go through there that probably had great potential, but we would never know because they weren't given a good opportunity. And that
mhm,
sucks, because then
mhm.
you invested all this time, all these hours in a
All this
training
money,
academy,
all this
right?
money.
All this certification, but because you had them with a trainer that wasn't trying, now you just wasted a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So you have to at some point want to do better as an agency, but
Mhm.
it can't be one person trying to do the best for everybody.
Yeah. No, I imagine it would be frustrating without the support from management. And I mean, in our work environment, sometimes we have to really put the energy into the places and things that we can control, right? So, like for you, you're bowing out of CTO. It's not for you right now. Maybe you'll come back to it later, but you're going to put your energy somewhere else. And that's totally valid. There's nothing wrong with, delegating your energy as you need to delegate it, to make your work life and home life balance a little more equal. So I applaud you for being able to make that recognition and step back so you can continue to help in other ways. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are probably out there maybe feeling the same way. And, I'm here to tell you it's okay to change the thing you're doing at work if you need to, because it's just another form of self care. You know, there's always going to be a shortage, there's always going to be a reason for you to continue to wear yourself thin for whatever the thing is. But at the end of the day, you gotta do what you gotta do for yourself. And, for you and for Latinas in 911, it's gonna go so much farther. You're gonna have so much more room, to help people grow with just dropping this one thing and moving on to something else. So, you know, I'm sure so many people appreciate you training them and helping them through the process. And that doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated, but you're going to also help so many other people, focusing on this venture that you're going into now. I'm super excited to see where it goes.
You and me both. You and me both.
It's so fun, like and I still see myself as just kind of getting started, doing all the things and talking to all the people and brushing all the shoulders, and when you emailed me and said that I'm one of the reasons you had the idea to do this, me and 911 Wonder Woman, Sarah, it was such an honor, like to hear that, because half the time I just feel like I'm winging myself through this thing and holding it together with duct tape. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but make it work and you learn. So to hear the thing that I'm putting out there into the world is helping create more awesome things and resources for folks, especially, the Hispanic community, people of color in general is amazing to me.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, I still am laughing about that one episode I heard. It was so funny. She was saying, the holster sniffers out there, I was dying laughing. I was like, the what? I told my wife, I was like, honey, remember I talked about badge bunnies? Well, I just learned another term that was hilarious.
Man, the things I learn on this show, man, I tell you.
She made me laugh so hard that morning. So it's good. It's a good pastime also, before you go to work, you listen to you. It's amazing.
Oh man, you'll make me blush again. Well, as we start, coming to the end of this and, talking about your career, helping folks as a CTO, and now moving on to another passion where you're going to be able to help more dispatchers, what advice would you give someone who is considering a career in dispatch?
I say don't do it for the money. This job should not be taken lightly. There's a reason we have a turnaround rate. It's not a job that's easy to manage home life and work. So just make sure it's the right job for you.
Awesome. Such good advice. Josephine, thank you so much for coming onto the show with me. Where can people find you, follow you? What socials are you on? Do you have a website? All that good stuff.
Yes, I have latinasofnine1.com, and I'm also in a Facebook group. I have Latinas of 91 also there, and in Instagram I have Latinas of 91 as well.
Awesome. And I'll put all that information in the information section of the episode as well for folks to connect with you, follow you, reach out to you, all that good stuff. And I wish nothing but growth and continued helping of our dispatch community for you in Latinas of 911.
Thank you, Ashley. Look forward to working with you in the future again.
Awesome. I'll be right back with you.
Okay.
All right, everybody. That was another wonderful episode of Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, Josephine, thank you so much for your service, for your dedication to helping aspiring dispatchers through that training process, and ultimately creating Latinas of 911, which you can check out at latinasof911.com, as well as on Instagram and the Facebook page, and really connect with her putting out all this great information and resources for dispatchers, because there is enough room for all of us. Anyone who is out there trying to get information, trying to get resources to folks, I want to talk to you. I want to put your platform out there for folks to connect with, because anything that's positive and anything that's preaching, more mental health awareness, more awareness for this career of dispatching, we need to hear about it. So subscribe, tell a friend. If you're interested in being a guest, head to theraspydispatcher.com. And until next time, everybody, stay raspy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Dispatch, a Raspy Dispatcher production. If you like the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and of course, tell a friend. If you want to be a guest, head to theraspydispatcher.com and check out our additional resources. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody.